There were monsters. At least that is what most species in the galaxy believed. They stood 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in thick green scales that could stop a knife. Their teeth were as long as a human finger and their claws could tear through metal. They had conquered 17 star systems in 300 years. When a fleet appeared in your sky, you surrendered. Fighting was pointless. But even monsters have children, and even monsters can feel fear. Was 7 years old. She was small for a barely 4 feet tall. Her scales were still soft, not yet hardened by age. Her teeth were small and her claws were dull. She was not a monster yet. She was just a child who liked to chase birds in the garden and listen to her grandmother tell stories about ancient wars. Her grandmother was the High Matriarch of the Empire. She was the most powerful being in 17 star systems. She had killed enemies with her bare claws. She had burned worlds that her. But when she looked at Little, her yellow eyes became soft. The child was her only weakness. Everyone knew it. That is why they took her. The diplomatic station on Nexus 7 was supposed to be safe. It was neutral ground where all species could meet and talk without weapons. Had come with her grandmother for a trade meeting. She was bored during the long talks, so a guard took her to see the garden on the lower level. That was their mistake. The syndicate had been planning this for months. They were criminals, the worst kind. They bought and sold people. They dealt in weapons and secrets and pain. Their spies had watched the matriarch for a long time. They knew she was the key. 6 masked figures came out of the shadows. The guard fought hard, but they shot him with a stun weapon. He fell to the ground, his body shaking. Tried to run, but she was small and scared. A bag went over her head. Strong arms lifted her. She screamed, but no one heard. When the matriarch learned what happened, her roar shook the station. Walls cracked. Windows shattered. Guards ran in fear. She grabbed the nearest console and crushed it with her bare hands. Her claws left deep marks in the metal floor. "Find them," she growled. "Find them now." But finding them was not simple. The kidnappers had taken to the hollows. It was a station built inside an asteroid field, far from any government. 47 different criminal groups lived there. They all hated each other, but they hated outsiders more. If the fleet attacked, all 47 groups would fight together. It would be a war that could last years. And did not have years. She did not even have days. The ransom message came 6 hours later. A crime lord named appeared on the screen. He was huge and ugly, with gray skin covered in scars. Around his neck hung a necklace of teeth. Teeth. He had killed 6 warriors in single combat and taken their teeth as prizes. "Matriarch," he said, smiling with broken yellow teeth, "I have something that belongs to you." The screen showed in a small cage. She was curled up in the corner, shaking. Her yellow eyes were wide with fear, but she was not crying. Even at 7 years old, she would not give them the pleasure of her tears. "I will kill you," the matriarch said. Her voice was quiet, which made it more terrifying. "I will kill everyone you have ever known. I will burn your station and scatter your ashes across the void." Laughed, "Maybe you will, but not today. Today you will listen." He wanted the access codes to the military network. With those codes, he could sell secrets to their enemies. He could make himself rich beyond imagination. And if the matriarch refused, or if she sent her fleet, Little would die. "You have 72 hours, said. "Choose wisely." The screen went dark. The matriarch stood alone in her command room. For the first time in 100 years, she did not know what to do. Her fleet was the strongest in the sector, but it was useless here. Her warriors were the fiercest in the galaxy, but they could not help. If she attacked, would die. If she gave the codes, millions of her people would die later when enemies used those secrets against them. There was no good choice. There was no way out. Then she remembered something. A story she had heard long ago about a species called humans. Humans were strange creatures. They were small and soft. They had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. They could not run fast or see in the dark. By all logic, they should have died out long ago. But they had not. They had spread across the galaxy. They had built ships and weapons and cities on 1,000 worlds. And they had a reputation. The story said that humans did not know when to quit. They did not understand the word impossible. When a human decided to do something, they did it. They would chase an enemy across the entire galaxy for revenge. They would walk into certain death without fear. They were not the strongest species but they were the most stubborn. The matriarch had never believed these stories. She thought they were myths, tales told to scare children. But now, with her own child in danger, she was willing to try anything. She contacted the Terran Diplomatic Corps. Was sleeping when the call came. He was a middle-aged man with gray at his temples and tired eyes. He had been a diplomat for 20 years. He had stopped wars and saved lives. He had also seen terrible things that kept him awake at night. When he saw the matriarch on his screen, he sat up straight. This was not a normal call. "Human," she said. Her voice was rough like stones grinding together. "They say your kind walks where others cannot. They say you do impossible things." Listened as she explained. A child taken, a fortress full of criminals, a deadline that was already ticking away. No army could help, no fleet could save her. "You want me to go alone?" he said. It was not a question. "Can you do it?" Was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the Hollows. He had been there once years ago. It was a dark place full of dark people. Going there alone was suicide. Everyone knew that. But somewhere in that darkness, a little girl was sitting in a cage, waiting for someone to save her. "I will need a small ship," he said finally, "something fast and quiet. You will have it. And you will need to trust me. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you cannot send your fleet. If they see warships coming, they will kill her." The matriarch's claws dug into her throne. It went against every instinct she had. She was a predator. She wanted to hunt, to kill, to protect her blood with her own strength. But she looked at the human's eyes on the screen. They were calm, steady. There was no fear in them. "I will trust you," she said. "Bring her back to me." Nodded once. Then he ended the call and began to pack. He did not pack weapons. He did not pack armor. He packed a small medical kit, some water, and a protein bar. He put on a simple gray coat and his old boots. He looked at himself in the mirror, just a man, just a human. But sometimes that was enough. The ship was waiting for him at the dock. It was small and fast, just as he had asked. As he walked toward it, a voice called out behind him. "Sir, are you sure about this?" It was Lieutenant Bay, one of his colleagues. She was young and smart and very worried. "No," said honestly, "but I am going anyway." "At least let me come with you. Let me provide backup." He shook his head. "If they see two of us, they might panic. One man walking alone is strange. It makes them curious. It makes them hesitate. That hesitation is the only weapon I need." Wanted to argue, but she saw the look in his eyes. He had already decided. Nothing would change his mind. "Come back alive," she said quietly. "I will try." He walked onto the ship. The door closed behind him. A moment later, the engines fired and the ship rose into the black sky. Somewhere far away, a little girl waited in a cage. And a single human flew through the stars to save her. The Hollows was not one station. It was many stations built together over hundreds of years. Pirates and criminals had taken old ships and broken stations and welded them all into one giant structure. It floated in an asteroid field where no government ships could easily go. It was ugly and dangerous and full of shadows. Ship approached slowly. He could see lights flickering in thousands of windows. Each light was a life. Smugglers, killers, thieves, and worse. They had all come to the Hollows because the outside galaxy did not want them. Here they were free, free to hurt, free to steal, free to do terrible things without punishment. The docking bay was dirty and crowded. Old ships sat in rows, leaking fuel and smoke. Creatures of many species walked around, shouting and fighting and making deals. No one looked happy. Happiness was not something you found in the hollows. When stepped off his ship, heads turned. He was not impressive to look at. Medium height, medium build, gray coat, old boots, no visible weapons, just a human male walking calmly through the chaos. But something about him made people stop and stare. A dock worker, a four-armed creature with blue skin, dropped his tools. Is that a human? His partner, a thin being with too many eyes, nodded slowly. It is. What is a human doing here alone? They watched as walked past them without a glance. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. He did not hurry. He did not slow down. He moved like a man taking a walk in a park, not a man entering the most dangerous place in the sector. Word spread fast. In the hollows, information was money. Within minutes, everyone who mattered knew that a human had arrived, alone, unarmed, walking towards Sector 8 where the Syndicate had their territory. In a dark room filled with smoke, a group of criminals played cards. One of them, a female with metal teeth, threw down her hand. "A human," she said, "walking alone through the main corridor. That is either the bravest thing I have ever heard or the—" "Maybe both," another player said. He was old and thin, with skin like paper. "I have seen humans before. They do not think like us. They do not know when something is impossible." "That sounds like weakness." "No," the old one shook his head slowly. "That is what makes them dangerous. They walk into places they should not survive, and somehow they walk out again." Moved through the crowded streets of the hollows. Beings twice his size stepped out of his way. They did not know why. Something in the way he moved made them uncomfortable. He looked at everything and everyone, but his expression never changed. Calm, patient, certain. A group of young thugs blocked his path. There were 5 of them, all different species, all carrying weapons. Their leader was a massive creature with 4 arms and a head like a rock. "Human," the growled, "you are in the wrong place. Pay the toll or we break your legs." Stopped, he looked at them for a long moment. Then he tilted his head slightly, like a curious bird. "No," he said simply. The blinked. No one said no to him. People begged, people ran, people paid, but no one ever just said no. "What did you say?" "I said no." His voice was quiet but clear. "I do not have time for this. Please move." The raised one of his 4 fists. His friends laughed and moved closer. This human was going to learn a painful lesson. But then the looked into his eyes. He had beaten many beings in his life. He had seen fear in 1,000 different faces. He knew what it looked like when someone was scared, even if they tried to hide it. But this human had no fear, none at all. His eyes were calm and steady, like pools of dark water. And somewhere deep in those eyes they saw something else, something that made his stomach turn cold. It was not anger, it was not hate, it was certainty. This human was absolutely certain that he would walk past them. He was certain like the sun was certain to rise. The lowered his fist. "Let him through," he muttered. "Boss," one of his friends said, confused. "I said let him through." The thugs parted, nodded politely and walked on. Behind him, the shivered. He did not understand what had just happened. He only knew that he was glad the human was gone. Deep in Sector 8, found the noodle stand he was looking for. It was small and dirty, squeezed between a weapons shop and a bar. Steam rose from pots of boiling broth. The smell was actually good, which was surprising for this place. A woman sat at the counter, eating noodles. She was Korean like him, with short black hair and sharp eyes. A scar ran down her left cheek. She wore old military boots and a jacket with many hidden pockets. Park said, sitting next to her. She did not look surprised to see him. "I heard you were coming. The whole station is talking about the crazy human walking alone through the hollows." "Not crazy, just focused." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. Same thing in this place. She pushed a data chip across the counter. Here, everything I could find about's compound. Floor plans, guard schedules, security systems. It is not good news. Took the chip and plugged it into his small tablet. Images and data scrolled across the screen. His face did not change as he read, but his eyes grew darker. The compound was a fortress. It had 3 layers of security. Energy shields covered every entrance. 50 armed guards patrolled day and night. The inner chamber where they kept prisoners had walls made of reinforced steel, and at the center of it all sat himself. "He is us," said quietly. "You know what that means." "Yes." "Were born for combat. Their bones were dense as metal. Their muscles could crush stone. Their skin could turn away most bullets. In a straight fight, it could kill almost any other species. Was the strongest in the sector. He had killed 6 warriors with his bare hands. 6. And they were supposed to be the deadliest predators in the galaxy. You cannot fight him," said. "You cannot sneak past his guards. You cannot hack his systems. I have been here 3 years. I have seen people try to hit the syndicate. They all died, every single one. I am not going to fight him." "Then what are you going to do?" Looked at her. His eyes were still calm, still steady, but now there was something else in them, something that made his heart beat faster. "I am going to walk in," he said. "I am going to take the child, and I am going to walk out." "That is impossible." "Maybe. They will kill you. Maybe." "Why?" Grabbed his arm. Her fingers dug into his coat. "Why are you doing this? She is not even human. She is a predator. Her people have killed millions. Why risk your life for one of their children?" Was quiet for a moment. He looked down at his hands. They were ordinary hands, soft like all human hands. No claws, no armor, just skin and bone and blood. "Because she is 7 years old," he said softly. "Because she is sitting in a cage right now, scared and alone. Because when she cries, she sounds like any other child crying. Human. It does not matter. Pain is pain. Fear is fear." He looked up at, "I cannot save everyone. I know that, but I can save her, so I will." Stared at him for a long time. She had met many humans during her years in the Hollows. Most of them were just like other species, trying to survive, trying to make money, trying to stay alive. But sometimes she met one like a human who had decided something, a human who had made a choice. Those were the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. "You are going to die," she said, but her voice was not certain anymore. "Maybe," said again. He stood and put the tablet in his pocket. "But maybe not. Humans are strange that way." He walked out of the noodle stand. The streets of the Hollows stretched before him, dark and dangerous. Somewhere ahead, past the guards and the walls and the crime lord in his throne, a little girl was waiting. Started walking. He did not look back. Around him, the creatures of the Hollows watched and whispered. They had seen many things in this lawless place. They had seen battles and murders and horrors beyond counting, but they had never seen anything quite like this. A single human, walking towards certain death, with nothing but certainty in his eyes. And despite everything they knew, despite all logic and reason, some of them began to wonder. Maybe he would actually do it. Maybe the impossible was about to happen. The Syndicate compound sat at the heart of Sector 8 like a metal spider in its web. It was ugly and strong, built from the hulls of old warships. Gun turrets watched from every corner. Energy shields hummed around every door. This was where ruled his empire of crime. No one entered without his permission. No one left without his approval. The guards at the outer wall were bored. Nothing exciting ever happened here. Who would be stupid enough to attack the syndicate? They played cards and told jokes and counted the hours until their shift ended. Then one of them looked at his sensor screen and stopped laughing. "Hey," he said, "are you seeing this?" His partner leaned over. On the screen, a single dot was moving toward the compound. One life sign, One person, walking straight up the main road. Who is that? I do not know. Let me check the species scanner. The guard pressed some buttons. His face went pale. It says human. Human, are you sure? Yes, one human. No weapons, no armor, just walking toward us. They looked at each other, then they looked at the screen again. The dot kept moving, slow and steady, not stopping, not hiding, just coming closer and closer. Should we do something? Before anyone could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the compound. Word had reached. The crime lord wanted answers. In his throne room, watched the security feeds with narrow eyes. The human was visible now, walking up the road in plain view. Gray coat, old boots, hands at his sides. He moved like he was taking a walk in his own neighborhood, not approaching a fortress of killers. What is he doing? Growled. His lieutenant, a nervous creature with scales and too many teeth, shook his head. We do not know, my lord. He just appeared and started walking. No ship backup, no team, just him. Is this some kind of trick? We have scanned everything. There are no hidden forces, no bombs, nothing. It is just one human. Leaned forward in his throne. He had lived a long time. He had seen many strange things, but he had never seen anything like this. A single being walking alone into his territory. It made no sense. Unless... The child said slowly, he is here for her. One human against all of us, that is suicide. Yes, it is, smiled, showing his broken yellow teeth. Kill him. The order went out. Snipers took positions on the walls. They were the best shooters in the sector, each one with hundreds of kills. They aimed their weapons at the approaching human. Easy shot. Simple target, nothing special. They fired. 12 energy beams streaked through the air. Perfect shots, accurate to the millimeter. Any normal being would have been cut to pieces. The human did not stop walking. A shimmer appeared around his body for just a moment. The shots hit the shimmer and vanished. Then the shimmer was gone and the human kept moving forward. Same pace, same calm expression, like nothing had happened. Personal shield, someone said over the radio. His voice was shaking. He has a personal shield. Then hit him with something bigger, the lieutenant screamed. Use the heavy guns. The wall turrets turned and fired. Explosions lit up the road. Smoke filled the air. The ground shook from the impacts. When the smoke cleared, the guards expected to see a body, or at least pieces of a body. The human was still standing, still walking. His shield had held. How, a guard whispered, how is that possible? It was not possible. Personal shields that strong did not exist. They could not exist. The power requirements would be too high, the technology too complex. But the human kept walking anyway, and the guards began to feel something they had not felt in a long time. Fear. Reached the main gate. His shield was strong but not unlimited. He had maybe 2 or 3 more heavy hits before it failed, but the guards did not know that. They only knew what they saw, a man who would not fall, a man who would not stop. 20 guards stood at the gate. They had their weapons raised. Their hands were shaking. Looked at them. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not make any threat. He just looked. My name is, he said. His voice was calm and clear. I am here for the child. One guard, a young one, found his voice. You are alone. You have no backup. You are surrounded by armed men. What makes you think you will leave here alive? Tilted his head. You are asking the wrong question. What is the right question? The right question is this. I know how many of you there are. I know what weapons you have. I have seen your fortress and your defenses. I know exactly what I am walking into. He paused. His eyes moved across their faces one by one. And I came anyway. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself what kind of person does that. Silence. The guards looked at each other. The young one's weapon started to lower. I am going to walk inside now, said. You can try to stop me, but I want you to think carefully first. I am not here for you. I have no quarrel with you. I just want the child. Let me pass and you all live to see tomorrow. Try to stop me." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The guards parted. Walked through the gate. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Behind him, 20 armed men stood frozen, unsure of what had just happened. They had guns. They had numbers. They had every advantage. And they had let one human walk right past them. Inside the compound, watched through the security feeds. His claws dug into his throne, leaving deep marks in the metal. The cold feeling in his chest was growing stronger. He did not know its name. He had not felt it since he was young, before he became strong, before he learned to kill. Fear, the word came to him slowly like a forgotten dream. This is fear. "Stop him," he roared. "All guards, stop the human." But his voice did not sound angry anymore. It sounded desperate. Moved through the compound like water through cracks in stone. Guards ran toward him, weapons ready. He did not fight them. He just kept walking. And something about the way he walked, the absolute certainty in every step, made them hesitate. That hesitation was all he needed. Down one corridor, through a security door, past a room full of armed criminals who watched him pass with wide eyes. He followed the map had given him. Left turn, right turn, down the stairs. The holding cells were in the lowest level, dark and cold. The smell of fear and pain hung in the air. Cages lined the walls, most of them empty, but one cage at the far end held something small. Looked up when she heard footsteps. Her yellow eyes were dull from exhaustion. She had not slept since they took her. She had not eaten since the first day. But when she saw the stranger at her cage, she bared her teeth and growled. "Stay back," she hissed. Her voice was small but fierce. "I will bite you." Knelt down so he was at her level. He looked at her through the bars. His eyes were gentle. "Hello," he said softly. "My name is, your grandmother sent me." The growl stopped, stared at him. "Grandmother?" "Yes, she is waiting for you. She misses you very much." But looked around at the dark cell, the locked door, the walls that had held her for so long. "But how will we get out? There are so many of them. They have guns and walls and that scary gray man." Smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind that made you feel safe even in the worst places. "Do not worry about them," he said. "That is not your job." "Then whose job is it?" "Mine." He pressed a small device against the cage lock. There was a click and the door swung open, scrambled out and into his arms. She was shaking. Her scales were cold against his skin. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I know," held her gently, "but you are safe now. I am going to take you home." "Promise." He looked down at her. A 7-year-old predator, far from home, scared and alone. But in his arms she was just a child, just a little girl who needed someone to protect her. "I promise," he said. And somewhere in that promise heard something, a certainty, an unbreakable truth. This human would take her home. Nothing in the universe would stop him. She believed him. Above them, 50 armed guards waited. A crime lord sat on his throne, rage and fear fighting in his chest. The entire compound was on alert, every weapon aimed at the corridors. And a single human held a child in his arms, ready to walk back through all of it. The impossible was about to happen. Stood at the bottom of the stairs, held against his chest. She was light, lighter than he expected. Her arms wrapped around his neck, her face pressed into his shoulder. He could feel her heart beating fast, like a small bird trapped in a cage. Above them, footsteps echoed. Guards were gathering. He could hear their voices, nervous and angry. They knew where he was. They knew what he had done. And they did not know what to do about it. "Close your eyes," said softly. "Do not look until I tell you." Nodded and pressed her face deeper into his coat. She trusted him. She did not know why. She only knew that when he spoke, she believed him. Started climbing the stairs. At the top, 15 guards waited. They had their weapons raised. Their fingers were on their triggers. All they had to do was fire. One man carrying a child. An easy target, simple. But none of them fired. Walked past them. His footsteps were steady and slow. He looked straight ahead, not at the guards, not at their weapons. He moved like they were not even there, like they were shadows, like they were nothing. One guard, a veteran who had killed 30 people in his life, felt his hands start to shake. He tried to aim at the human's head. His finger pressed against the trigger, but something stopped him. Something in the way the human walked. Something in the way he held that child. This was not a man walking to his death. This was a man walking home. "Fire!" someone screamed. "Why is no one firing?" But the screamer did not fire either. None of them did. Reached the main corridor. More guards were there, coming from all directions. 30 of them. 40. They filled the hallway like a wall of guns and anger. Somewhere behind them was roaring orders. Kill him now." The guards raised their weapons. This time surely they would shoot. This time surely the human would fall. Stopped. He looked at the wall of armed criminals. His face was calm, trembled in his arms but kept her eyes closed like he had told her. "I am leaving now," said. His voice was not loud, but somehow everyone heard it. "The child is coming with me. You can try to stop me. Some of you might succeed, but ask yourself one question first." He paused. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. "Is it worth it? Is it worth dying for? Because I promise you this. I will not stop. You can shoot me and I will take another step. You can hurt me and I will keep walking. You will have to kill me to stop me, and some of you will die in the trying." He started walking again. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. The guards did not move. "I am not here for money," continued. "I am not here for revenge. I am not here to fight any of you. I just want to take this child home to her family. That is all. That is everything." Another step. Another. He was walking through them now, through the wall of guns, through the army of killers. They parted like water around a stone. They could not explain why. They only knew that something about this human made them want to step aside. A young guard, barely more than a boy, stood directly in his path. His weapon shook in his hands. His eyes were wide. Stopped in front of him. "You are young," said gently. "You still have time to become something else, something better. Move aside." The young guard's eyes filled with tears. He did not understand them. He had never cried before, not in years. But something about the human's words broke something inside him. He stepped aside. Walked on. From a window high above, watched. His throne room was empty now. All his guards were below, failing to stop one human. The crime lord stood at the glass, his massive hands pressed against it. "How," he whispered, "how is this happening?" He had killed 6 warriors. He had crushed rebellion. He had built an empire of crime. He was the most feared being in the Hollows. And yet, a single human was walking through his compound, carrying his prize, and no one was stopping him. Suddenly understood something terrible. The human was not winning because he was stronger. He was not winning because he was smarter or faster or better armed. He was winning because he had decided to win. He had looked at impossible odds and said, "No. No, I will not fail. No, I will not stop. No, nothing will prevent me from doing what I came to do." And the universe somehow was bending around that decision. This was what made humans terrifying. Not their technology, not their weapons, their will. Their absolute, unbreakable, unreasonable will. Turned away from the window, he could not watch any more. 3 floors below, Lieutenant Bay watched through her scope. She had ignored orders and followed him to the Hollows. She had found a rooftop 3 blocks away with a clear view of the compound. Her rifle was ready. She had expected to spend this night shooting guards, providing cover, helping her friend escape. She had not fired a single shot. "You absolute madman," she whispered. Her voice was thick with something between laughter and tears. You actually did it. On the ground reached the main gate. The same guards who had let him in now let him out. They stood in two lines, weapons lowered, watching him pass. Some of them looked relieved. Some looked confused. Some looked ashamed. One guard, the young one who had asked the wrong question earlier, stepped forward. "Human," he said. His voice was quiet. "How did you know? How did you know we would not shoot?" Looked at him. "I did not know." "But you walked in anyway. You risked everything." "Yes." "Why?" Was quiet for a moment. He looked down at who had finally opened her eyes. She was looking around at the guards, at the fortress, at the night sky beyond. Her yellow eyes were full of wonder. "Because she needed someone who would not stop," said finally. "She needed someone who would come for her no matter what, so that is what I became." The young guard stared at him. Then slowly he stepped back. "Go," he said, "take her home." Nodded and walked on. The streets of the hollows were quiet now. Word had spread. Everyone knew what had happened. The human who walked alone, the child he carried, the fortress that let him pass. It was already becoming a story, a legend, a whisper in the dark. Creatures watched from windows and doorways. They did not threaten. They did not block his path. They just watched. An old being, ancient and tired, sat on a bench near the docking bay. When past, the old one called out, "Human, wait." Stopped. "I have lived a long time," the old one said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen heroes and monsters, but I have never seen anything like what you did tonight. It was nothing special." "No, you are wrong." The old one's eyes were bright in the dim light. "What you did tonight will echo. It will change things. People will tell this story. They will remember. And some of them, some young fool somewhere in the galaxy, will hear this story and think maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can be unstoppable." Did not know what to say. He nodded and turned to leave. "Human," the old one called again. "What is your name?" The old one repeated it slowly, tasting each syllable. "I will remember. The galaxy will remember." Ship was waiting. The door opened and he stepped inside, looked up at him as he settled her into a seat. "Are we safe now?" she asked. "Almost. We just need to fly home." "What about the bad people? Will they chase us?" Looked out the window at the hollows falling away below them. The lights of the station grew smaller and smaller. "No," he said, "they will not chase us." "How do you know?" He smiled, that same warm smile that made everything feel okay. "Because they learned something tonight, something important." "What did they learn?" Looked at her, this small predator, this child who would one day grow into something fierce and beautiful. She was safe now. She was going home. "They learned what happens when a human makes a promise," he said. "They learned that we do not stop, we do not give up, we do not turn back. When we decide something will happen, we make it happen." Was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled too. It was a small smile, still shaky from fear, but real. "Humans are strange," she said. "Yes," agreed, "we are." The ship flew on through the stars. Behind them, the hollows disappeared into darkness. Ahead, the fleet waited. And somewhere in that vast black emptiness, a story was being born. A story about a human who walked into hell alone and walked out carrying a predator's child. A story the galaxy would never forget. The fleet filled the sky like a wall of metal and fire. 17 warships, each one massive enough to block out the sun. They had been waiting for hours, unable to attack, unable to retreat, unable to do anything but hope. When small ship appeared on their sensors, no one dared to believe it. "Is that him?" an officer asked. His voice was barely a whisper. One ship, small, human design. The sensor operator checked her readings 3 times. It matches the ship that left, and there are 2 life signs aboard. 2, the human and someone else. The matriarch stood at the center of the bridge. She had not moved in 6 hours. She had not eaten. She had not slept. She had only waited, her massive body still as stone, her yellow eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the windows. Now those eyes widened. "Open a channel," she said. Her voice cracked on the words. The screen flickered. His face appeared. He looked tired. There were circles under his eyes and lines on his face that had not been there before, but he was smiling. "Matriarch," he said, "I have something for you." He moved aside, and there, sitting in the seat behind him, wrapped in a blanket, was. The bridge went silent. Warriors who had never shown emotion in their lives felt their eyes grow wet. Officers gripped their consoles to keep from falling. The impossible had happened. The child was alive. "Grandmother," his voice came through the speakers, small and uncertain. "Grandmother, is that you?" The matriarch could not speak. For the first time in 100 years, the most powerful being in 17 star systems could not find words. She reached toward the screen with one clawed hand, as if she could touch her granddaughter through the void. "I am coming to you now," said gently. "We will be docked in 5 minutes." He ended the transmission. The 5 minutes felt like 5 years. The matriarch walked to the docking bay. Her guards followed, but she barely noticed them. Her mind was focused on one thing only. When the ship's door finally opened, time seemed to stop. Walked down the ramp first. He was carrying in his arms. She looked so small against him, so fragile. Her scales were dull and her eyes were tired. But when she saw her grandmother, her whole face lit up. "Grandmother!" The matriarch fell to her knees. It was not a graceful movement. She crashed down like a building collapsing. Her arms opened and ran into them. The sound that came from the matriarch was not a roar. It was not a growl. It was a sob. A deep, raw, ancient sound of relief and love and pain all mixed together. She held her granddaughter so tightly that squeaked in protest. "You are safe," the matriarch whispered. "You are safe, you are safe, you are safe." "Grandmother, you are squishing me." "I do not care." The warriors watched in amazement. They had never seen their leader like this. They had never known she could feel such things. But watching her hold that small child, they understood something new about her. She was not just a conqueror. She was not just a killer. She was a grandmother who loved her family more than anything in the universe. Finally, the matriarch looked up at. He stood quietly, watching the reunion. His face was peaceful. He looked like a man who had finished a long journey and could finally rest. "Human," the matriarch's voice was rough from crying. "You walked into a fortress alone. You faced an army. You brought my blood back to me." She rose to her feet, still holding against her. She towered over, almost 3 feet taller, 10 times heavier. But somehow in that moment they seemed equal. "How do I repay such a debt?" she asked. "There is no debt," said. "She is a child. Children should be safe, that is all." The matriarch was quiet for a long time. Then she did something that made every warrior in the room gasp. She bowed. Not a small bow. A full bow, her head going lower than his, her body folding in respect. No had ever bowed to another species. It was against their nature, against their pride, against everything they believed. But the matriarch bowed. Remember," she said. Her voice rang through the docking bay. "From this day forward, let it be known across all 17 of our worlds. Humans are not prey. They are not rivals. They are not enemies. They are pack. They are family. Any who harm a human will answer to the full might of the Empire." Bowed in return. "The honor is mine, matriarch." When he straightened, he felt a small hand tugging at his coat. He looked down to see standing beside him. She had left her grandmother's arms and come to him. "Thank you," she said. Her yellow eyes were bright and serious. "You saved me." "You were very brave," said. "Even when you were scared, you did not give up." "Because you came, because you promised." She tilted her head, a gesture that reminded him of her grandmother. "Will I see you again?" "Perhaps. The galaxy is big, but it is also small. Paths cross." Nodded. Then, before could react, She threw her small arms around his waist and hugged him. Her scales were warm now, not cold like before. Her heart beat steady and strong. "I will remember you," she said, "forever." Put his hand gently on her head, "And I will remember you." Later on the transport back to Earth, Lieutenant Bay caught up with him. She had been waiting at the edge of space in a small ship, ready to intervene if things went wrong. When they did not go wrong, she had followed at a distance, too amazed to do anything else. Now she sat across from in the transport's small cabin. Her eyes were red, though she would never admit to crying. "You are completely insane," she said. "You know that, right? So people keep telling me. You could have died 100 times over. That crime lord could have killed you with one hand." "Yes. And you just walked in anyway, like it was nothing." Leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. "It was not nothing. It was the hardest thing I have ever done." Was quiet for a moment. "Were you scared?" He did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was soft. "Terrified every step, every second. I thought my heart would stop from fear." "But you did not show it. You looked so calm." Because that is what she needed. A child in a cage does not need to see her rescuer's fear. She needs to see certainty. She needs to believe that everything will be okay. He opened his eyes. "So that is what I showed her." Shook her head slowly. "Is that a human thing, hiding your fear so others can feel safe?" "Maybe, or maybe it is just a living thing. We all pretend to be stronger than we are for the people who need us." The transport flew on through the stars. Behind them, the fleet turned toward home, carrying their precious cargo. Ahead, Earth waited, blue and green and beautiful. "The galaxy is going to talk about this," said. "You know that. The story is already spreading. By tomorrow, everyone will know about the human who walked alone into the hollows. Let them talk. It might change things, how other species see us." Smiled. "Maybe that is not a bad thing. Maybe it is good for the galaxy to remember what we are capable of. Not our weapons or our ships, our will, our stubbornness, our refusal to accept the impossible." Thought about that. She thought about all the stories she had heard about humans, the wars they had won against all odds, the disasters they had survived, the times they had been told something could not be done, and they had done it anyway. "We are strange creatures," she said. "Yes, we are." Somewhere far away, in a palace on a world, a small cub sat with her grandmother by a fire. She was telling the story of her rescue. Her friends listened with wide eyes. "Weren't you scared?" they asked. "No," said, and she meant it. "Because he told me not to worry. He said that was his job, and I believed him." But how did he do it? How did one human stop them all? Thought about it. She remembered the guard stepping aside. She remembered the crime lord watching from his window, afraid to act. She remembered the way he had walked, so calm, so steady, so absolutely certain. "He did not stop them," she said finally. "He just walked, and they let him pass because they knew." Knew what? Looked at the fire. The flames danced, orange and red and gold. "They knew he was going to take me home, and nothing in the universe was going to change that." She smiled. It was a fierce smile, already showing hints of the warrior she would become. "That is what a human is," she said. "That is why the galaxy fears them, not because they are strong, because they do not stop, ever, for any reason. When a human decides something will happen, it happens." Her grandmother listened from her throne. The matriarch's eyes were soft as she watched her granddaughter speak. This child would grow up differently now. She would know that strength came in many forms. That courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. And she would always remember the human who came for her. The human who walked alone into darkness and carried her back to the light. On Earth, when home, he had a small apartment with a small balcony that looked out over the city. He made himself tea and sat in his old chair and watched the sunset. His hands were shaking. They had been shaking since he left the hollows, but he had hidden it well. Now, alone, he let them shake. He let himself feel the fear that he had pushed away for so long. He had almost died. 100 times, 1,000 times, every step could have been his last. But he had taken those steps anyway, because a child needed him, because sometimes that was enough. He sipped his tea and watched the colors fade from the sky. Tomorrow, there would be reports and meetings and questions. Tomorrow, the galaxy would want to understand how he had done the impossible. But tonight he was just a man, tired and scared and deeply, deeply grateful. He had made a promise, and he had kept it. That was all that mattered. That was everything.